Hey, it's LSFT here today, and today we're here to talk about my second trip on my 2022 Lexus NX 450h Plus. And this time I'm going from Toronto area to the Niagara Falls area. On my last trip to Ottawa, I used EV mode in cities, HV mode when I'm on highways, and I did not do any charging during that trip. This time, in Niagara, I was trying to find EV charging stations so that I can top up a little bit and be able to drive around. So in this video, I'll be talking about where I was looking for EV chargings and my experience in this trip. So I started off this trip with a full tank of gas, giving me 851 kilometers of HV mode and a fully charged vehicle with EV range of 69 kilometers. You have to keep in mind that the HV and the EV numbers where we see the distance to empty are guesstimates. This is based on your driving behaviors and the conditions on the road. So after doing the luggage challenge, I can finally use my two hand carry luggages and included a bottle of water and some other miscellaneous items. After picking up lunch and having a rest, we actually ended up at our first charging station. So we've driven about 150-ish kilometers, having 4.1 liters per 100, and also taking a 7-kilometer EV range drive to the charging station. So the first charging station is at the Niagara College at the Niagara-on-the-Lake campus. Charging is free. However, there is charge for parking, but on the weekends, parking is free. It is important to set it to charge now when you turn off your vehicle. If not, then when you plug it in, it doesn't really charge. What I had to do is go back to the vehicle and then press charge now, so then charging started. It started off at 2 kilowatt per hour, then powered at 5.2, then going to 6. The station is rated at 6.3, whereas the NX is 6.6, which means we cannot maximize the potential of the NX charging. Since we picked up lunch, we were going to have a picnic around the vehicle so that we can have some charge. But at a school, really, there's not much you can do around this area. There's an outlet mall which is close by, but it's still a fair amount of walking, about a 20-minute walk. So after having lunch, we actually went to one of the Niagara wineries and enjoyed some time there before we actually came back to the vehicle to see how far I got charged. So we got back to the vehicle after enjoying lunch and visiting the winery. Then we start looking at, okay, how did this all go? I apologize for the reflection as it was a sunny day and I don't know why they would make charging stations so reflective. So then we looked at the details and we see, oh, it's an hour and 26 minutes. You see it was free charging, 8.29 kilowatts roughly, and it actually started charging at 5.9 kilowatts. So it's still a little bit under the 6.3 that was rated by the charging station. And also, we did not take full utilization of the 6.6 kilowatt hour charging of the NX. Since it was close to an hour and a half, so we waited a few more minutes before we actually unplugged. So we're at 1 hour and 30 minutes, and you can see that 8.65 kilowatt roughly. So we started to pull the plug. So after an hour and a half of charging, we reached 54 kilometers in the distance to empty. We started with 15, and now we've actually gained 39 kilometers of EV range after charging for an hour and a half. So we headed off to Niagara-on-the-Lake and we spent some time at the Niagara parks. So we had 2 stops before we went to the hotel and driving about 9.6 kilometers in pure EV mode and then driving another 12 kilometers having some HV EV. We spent the evening not needing to drive. One reason was parking in Niagara Falls is expensive. The hotel is charging $70 per night parking, so we actually parked at the casino, which is much cheaper. While at the hotel, my naked eye was able to find an NX on the parking lot somewhere at the hotel. It's a green NX. Don't know what version NX, but it's definitely not an F Sport. And if you were the lucky one who watched this video, put your hands up and let me know that was you. So next day we went to Niagara on the lake. We made a few stops and then we ended up at a parking lot where there was one EV charging station. So you can see that this is the charging station that was available, and a Tesla was parking there and they were charging. So I was not able to charge. So we just wandered around Niagara on the lake where the town was, and just to enjoy our trip. This parking spot actually required costs. It was a $4.25 Canadian per hour to actually park in this parking lot. So being able to charge while paying for the parking is a bonus, because charging was free, but you still had to pay for the parking. So because I wasn't able to charge here, we picked up lunch and we headed off to a winery where there was a free charging station. So we ended up at Stratus Vineyards, where they had electrical vehicle parking and also 2 plugs for charging. One was for Tesla and one was for the J1772 plug, which is what's used in the NX. So before we plugged it in, we had 15 kilometers of EV range left. So one thing I would say, thank you Stratus Winery for providing free EV charging. Since we picked up lunch at the Niagara on the Lake, we brought our lunch here and we plugged our vehicle in, and we had another picnic with lunch. After that, we went into Stratus Winery and enjoyed some time there. So we spent about an hour at Stratus Vineyards, and actual charging time was about 54 minutes, and we gained 24 kilometers of EV range. We drove about 6 more stops to different wineries and then for dinner, and then we enjoyed another evening of fireworks. During the drive, we spent about 33 kilometers of EV range and a little bit of highway range. Day 3, and we went to pick up our car from the casino. It was time to check out and head home. Well, we also stopped at the outlet to do some shopping and walked around before heading home. At the outlet mall, they did not offer any EV charging, so we went and did a takeout and also looked at the app to see if there were any EV charging around the area. So we found a charging station close by to the outlet mall, and it's at Canadian Tire, and it's actually free. So thank you Canadian Tire for contributing some of the charge. And we actually went there and there was space available. Again, there was only one socket for us to use, but it was at least somewhere that we can spend some time. So the charger that was provided was a 30 amp charge, which was also on a 40 amp breaker. It was a level 2 charge and it could provide 30 amps, but however the NX can only support 6.6. There was no display on the charging station, and also the NX doesn't show you the charging speed. So all we know is I had 2 kilometers of EV range left, and it guesstimated that it will take 3 hours to finish charging. One thing I like about this charging station is that there's a lot of stores around the area. There's Canadian Tire, there's No Frills, there's Dollarama, there's Walmart, there's also Wendy's if you're hungry. So there's a lot of places to eat while you let your car charge. Unlike the other charging stations that we've been, there is not much around and there's only one place to go to, and you can only spend half an hour and you can't really charge much. So the total duration was 1 hour and 5 minutes, and we charged from 2 kilometers to the 33 kilometers that we see on the screen. So the 1 hour and 5 minutes, it actually charged 31 kilometers, which is quite impressive. And this 1 hour time was well spent, as I wasn't just sitting in the car waiting for it to charge. We were able to walk around and enjoy our time. So one of the biggest questions is the charging infrastructure ready for prime time? Do we have enough charging stations for all the people who want an EV and are looking for charging stations? Or even for us who have a plug-in hybrid, we probably want to charge while we're on the go. And looking at, right now we're at PlugShare, I'm looking at, okay, what kind of charging is available? So look at the hotels around Niagara Falls, and you notice that most of the chargings are actually at hotels, which is great, but they charge $70 a day for parking, which is a little bit ridiculous for parking at an hotel. And then you look at other areas where they have charging stations. Like this one is probably one of the best ones at Niagara Falls Municipal Parking, because this one here, there is charging and you have 4 plugs. You have 4 stations that have the J1772 plug, and they're actually free. So you all you need to do is pay for parking. But then you need to also look at what is close by. So this one is great, where it has restrooms, shopping, and there's a park. So you can enjoy some time and enjoy not having to just sit there wait for it to charge. Then we zoom out and look at other places. Like this is like a local 303, and we have a Canadian Tire gas station. So in this place, probably you could find, okay, so there's an A&W, there's a Vietnamese, there's Burger King, there's Starbucks. This is probably a very decent place to charge. But then when you look at here, how many chargers do they have? So for the NX, you have 2 chargers, like 2 plugs. And if it's been used, then you'll have to move on to the next place. And then just going around, and let me just zoom out, looks like there is a lot of charging stations around the area. But all of them are either dealerships or they are hotels. They're not really close to much of like malls or places where people can actually spend time while their car is charging. So you can see a lot of these are either offices, they are hotels, or they are just pure dealerships. So there's not a lot of places that you can charge and find something to do. So before closing this video, let's have a summary of the trip that I've taken. This is the second trip that Sunrise, my vehicle, has gone on a longer trip. So overall, I've driven 400 kilometers, exactly 400 kilometers, and used 2 bars of my gas, while also charging the vehicle while I was at the destination, and also had a full battery pack when I started the trip. So to summarize, I've charged 3 times during the 400 kilometer drive. The first charge was about 90 minutes, and I charged from 15 kilometers to 54 kilometers remaining. So we charged about 39 kilometers. The second charge took 52 minutes, and we had a 24 kilometer charge addition to the range. And then the third charge, which was about 65 minutes, and we gained 31 kilometers of range. So adding all that up, plus the original kilometers that we had in the vehicle, I had 163 kilometers of EV range. And again, this is a guesstimate. So the total 400 kilometers minus the 163 kilometers of EV range, we've got to 237 kilometers of hybrid driving. We used a quarter tank of gas, which is a 55-liter tank. Divide that by 4, and it brings you to 13.75 liters of gasoline. So taking the 13.75 liters and dividing that by the 237 kilometers of hybrid driving, that brings me to 5.8 liters per 100 kilometers, which is not too bad because the car is rated at 6.6 combined. And also, if you look at the US and UK miles per gallon, it's 40.5 and 48.7 miles per gallon. And again, these are all based on estimates, based on what I see in the gauges. It's not real exact measurements of how many liters of gas have I actually used. And also, the EV range is also just based on the guesstimate of the computer. Ignoring the EV range, but looking at driving 400 kilometers back and forth to Niagara Falls using 2 bars of gasoline, meaning a quarter tank of gasoline, is quite impressive, and I'm very pleased with this vehicle itself. I currently don't have plans on having another road trip shortly, but let me know if you actually are interested in learning more about any future road trips I'm going to go on. I'm hoping that with the push of EVs, that the charging infrastructure will increase and that we can potentially increase the potential of this vehicle. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to comment, like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. You can also press that bell icon to get alerted when new videos are out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers.